Ladies and gentlemen, the session 4 will get started soon. The speaker is Professor Lee. The moderator is Professor Jaehak from Department of English Instruction at University of Taipei. Now we leave time to Professor Hu.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jaehak Hu from University of Taipei. Welcome to this section on CEFR. As many of us know that CEFR is a common framework for documenting and assessing language proficiency for all the languages. So it is not specifically designed for the English language. It is applicable to all the languages. So that is why it is called a common framework rather than English framework. So I'm very delighted that we can have Professor Jaehak LEE here to be with us to broaden our understanding of using the framework as a reference for languages, right? Languages in a broader context. So Professor Lee is the chair, also the professor from the Department of Spanish at the Korean University. And his topic today is shown on the screen. It is National Foreign Language Education Policies and CEFR, English as a Second Language, and the situation of other foreign languages. I think that the point here should be situation of other foreign languages in Korean, right? Okay, so I think it's the time for me to hand over to Professor Jaehak LEE. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So my voice is not very good because of the cold I have. And I ask you the kind understanding. And now I begin my presentation. The Common European Framework for Languages is the product of the political will for the emerging supranational organizations, and it's intended to provide the common basis for the elaboration of language syllabuses, curriculum guidelines, examinations, textbooks, etc. across Europe, as all you already know. Although it describes in a comprehensive way what language learners have to learn to do in order to use a language for communication and what knowledge and skills they have to develop so as to act effectively. It also defines the language use as action-oriented viewing. Action-oriented viewing users and learners of a language primarily as social agents, that is, members of society who have tasks to accomplish in a given set of circumstances in a specific environment and in a particular field of action. Instead of selecting one specific national language as lingua franca, the Council of Europe created a new European language domain where all countries agree to accept plurilingualism and pluriculturalism, while the multilingualism refers to the knowledge of a number of languages. The plurilingualism refers to the ability to use languages for the purposes of communication and to take part in intercultural interaction, where a person viewed as a social agent has proficiency of varying degrees in several languages and experience of several cultures. Indeed, the plurilingualism is an educational value that is the basis of linguistic tolerance and an essential element of intercultural education. Therefore, the framework emphasizes the sense of identification with other Europeans and the commitment to the language learning on a lifelong basis. The Council of Europe promotes the common European policies for pluriculturalism and for languages in the European Union, which is made up of 27 countries and the CEFR has been rapidly adopted in them, primarily due to a political agenda. Culture points out that the CEF is a fascinating case study in the way political and social agendas can impact on language testing and how language testing can be made to serve those agendas. Third, the Association of Language Testers in Europe, called ALTE, has associated its test with the CEFR 6-level scale. For example, the El Instituto Cervantes of Spain has adapted the CEFR to the education of Spanish, and the DELE, known as Diplomas de Español como Lengua Extranjera, which were divided into 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced. Before, now, it follows the criteria proposed by CEFR, like A1, A2 for beginner level, B1, B2 for intermediate level, C1, C2 for advanced level. Some European countries like Germany, Austria, and the Netherlands have passed the immigration laws that require specific CEFR level on the test to obtain a permit of residence. As elders mentioned, the CEFR is genuinely European. Indeed, it's the product of top-down political will for the emerging supranational organization, and as Baines points out, the American context is opposite. Although there are many immigrant communities with their own languages in the United States, none of these languages, including Spanish, has been able to take over the position of English as prestigious languages, especially in the educational system. I compared the European case with the United States case. Unlike Europe, where the government-sponsored organizations such as the British Council, El Instituto Cervantes of Spain, and the Goethe Institute of Germany play an important role, the language policy making in the United States depends on the language professional organizations such as the ACTFR. The American Council on the Testing on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, and the ETS, the Educational Teaching Service. Whereas the European countries promote the plurilingualism to avoid the conflicts between its members. The United States doesn't need the centralized transnational framework. We can easily remember the famous English-only movement, which is happening in the United States. And nobody can deny that English plays the unifying role in the United States. While the Council of Europe worked on the CEFR in Europe, the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, ACTFR, developed the National Metric Scale of Proficiency in the Functional Use of Foreign Languages in the U.S. The ACTFR proficiency guidelines are designed to measure and to communicate foreign language proficiency. De Jong points out that the ACTFR guidelines made 2 major steps forward in the foreign language education. The ACTFR guidelines broke away from the traditional education of achievement in language learning based on the number of hours spent in the classroom and enabled the profession to assess performance based on actual proficiency. Secondly, by its explicit concern for speaking proficiency is succeeded in shifting the attention of teachers and learners from the written mode to the oral mode. The ACTFA guidelines are designed to measure learners' functional language skills in a target language. Thus, they emphasize the importance of the creative language use instead of focusing on the knowledge of phonology and structural devices of the language. To achieve its linguistic goal, the guidelines clearly mention the importance of the testing and curriculum development. Upon the ACTFA guidelines, measurable proficiency goals will form the basis for curriculum planning and classroom teaching. Students will more quickly develop a sense of accomplishment and will be able to refer to these yardsticks to measure their progress. The complex problem of articulation, the coordination of content and skills between grade and course level can also begin to address. Student evaluation and placement can be based on actual language proficiency instead of on inaccurate and relatively uninformative measures of time. The ACTFA scale is based on the teaching definitions, which have 6 levels. Working together with the ETS, we named the FSI called the Foreign Service Institute 6-level scale. So the level 0 as novice level, level 1 as intermediate, level 2 as advanced, and level 3, 4, 5 as superior. What the ACTFA guidelines recently really achieved is that it made it possible for teachers to assess the language performance based on actual proficiency instead of basing on the number of hours spent in the language learning. They were produced to help language educators measure learners' functional abilities in a target language instead of merely assessing what learners know about that language, assessing what learners know about the language. Indeed, the aim of the foreign language education changed from the written mode to the oral mode, thanks to the guidelines focusing on the speaking proficiency. So the emphasis on the creative language used instead of focusing on the knowledge of phonology and structural devices of the languages. It has become the core concept of the language education. In result, the proficiency test, which measure language learners' control of a wide range of communication skills, become more important than the achievement test, which measure learners' attainment of a particular course content. Although the ACTFA guidelines successfully turned people's attention on the oral proficiency in the language education, there is criticism on it. Some people point out that for many commentators, the most important failing of the ACTFA is therefore the fact that none of the scales have any empirical underpinning. The ACTFA guidelines fail to distinguish between general cognitive skills that are independent of the level of proficiency in the target language and language skills that are related to achievement in the target language. In spite of the criticism on it, especially which comes from the European scholars, the guidelines have become the basis for the teaching and testing of foreign languages in the United States. In the last decade, the ACTFA proficiency guidelines has certain influence on the secondary school English education in Korea, whereas they are primarily aimed at college students in the United States. In Korea, the responsible institute for the foreign language education policy making is Korea Institute for Curriculum and Evaluation. We call it KICE. It develops the national curriculum and the dissemination of teaching and learning methodologies, and also publishes the foreign language education guidelines. Since Korea Institute for Curriculum and Evaluation is a government-funded educational research institute whose purpose is to develop the curricula for elementary and secondary schools, it automatically controls various education evaluations and tests, including College Scholastic Ability Test, CSAT, known as 수능 in Korea, which is extremely important to get the college admission. The College Scholastic Ability Test, CSAT, known as 수능 in Korea, is one of the most significant events in the life of South Korean students. I think things happen in Taiwan. This high-stakes exam determines college admission and, by extension, has a profound impact on students' future career and social mobility. CNN reported that South Korea is the country run by the small group of elite, and to be an elite, they have to graduate from certain universities and from the certain high schools. In Taiwan, the same thing happened in Taiwan. And I think all of you already know very well about this situation. Given the test importance, the CSAT influences nearly every aspect of the education system, particularly in English language education, which is a core component of the exam. One of the most significant impacts on the CSAT on English education in Korea is the heavy emphasis on test preparation. Students often begin preparing for the English section of the CSAT years in advance, with many attending after-school academies, called in Korean 학원, specifically aimed at boosting test scores. This focus on exam preparation can lead to a narrowed curriculum, where the primary goal is to excel in the test rather than to develop comprehensive language skills. Consequently, students may become proficient in the types of questions asked on the CSAT, but might struggle with real-world English communication. To solve this problem, in the last decade, the foreign language policymakers in Korea have begun to put the importance on the communicative language teaching to improve the students' real-life language performance. In result, they have realized the importance of measuring communicative competence and have intended to replace the traditional achievement test with the hybrid of achievement and proficiency test. To do that, the foreign language educator determined what students would do with the language in a given mode. The CEFR guidelines define this given mode as 4 language functions: listening, speaking, reading, writing. And the KICE guidelines in Korea, almost the same as the CEFR guidelines, divide it in 2 language functions: understanding for listening and reading, and expression for speaking and writing. While these guidelines define the language function which provide direction in formulating specific objectives for the language education, the CEFR guidelines divide the language performance in reception, interaction, and production. Unlike the CEFR and the KICE guidelines, the CEFR guidelines put importance on the interaction between speakers in a given context and make language users to be able to produce their own specifications for their own language purposes. Until 2019, the students could submit TOEFL scores as part of their early admission process to enter the college, known as 수시, which allowed universities to accept applicants based on various qualifications beyond the traditional 수능 course. However, the submission of TOEFL scores in the early admission process to the college was eventually banned, prohibited due to concerns about fairness and the increasing influence of socio-economic factors in the college admission system, because students have to spend lots of money, their families spend lots of money in Hagwon, in the private academy, to learn TOEFL and to prepare the TOEFL. What happened in 2019 in Korea? The Jaehak scandal was erupted. The Jaehak scandal is so famous in South Korea until now, and Jaehak scandal had a significant impact on the college admission process, particularly concerning the early admission system called 수시 in Korea. This scandal revolved around the allegation that Jaehak, a former justice minister, and his family manipulated various academic and extracurricular records to gain favorable admission for their children into prestigious universities. This raised public outrage, especially over perceived elitism and corruption in the education system. The controversy highlighted the problem of the 수시 admission process, which allowed universities to consider a wide range of factors such as TOEFL and AP, advanced placement scores of the United States, personal statements, extracurricular activities, internship, and other achievements. My son, when he was a high school student, he had to study for the TOEFL and he had to study for the SAT to get the better score on AP scores. These factors were seen as being necessary to manipulation, favoring students from wealthier or more connected families. The family, if it has money, they can send their son to the private academy, and their sons with the son from the wealthy family can prepare better for TOEFL and for the SAT of the United States and for the AP scores of the United States, and they can handy these scores to enter the prestigious Korean universities before. The Jaehak scandal brought to light how such advantage could be leveraged to gain admission to top universities, undermining the fairness of the system. The government, in response to public concerns about inequality in the education system, aimed to create a more level playing field for college admission by prohibiting the use of external standardized tests like TOEFL in the sushi process. This policy shift was part of broader efforts to reduce the influence of private education and expensive extracurricular qualifications in admission, ensuring that the process would rely more on standardized criteria accessible to all students, regardless of their socio-economic background. So, the government banned finding the TOEFL score in the college admission process. But because of that, we have another problem called killer question. The introduction of killer question in the 수능, SAT, was paradoxically driven by a desire to ensure fairness and accuracy in differentiating students' abilities in a highly competitive educational environment. As Korea's college admission system became increasingly competitive, top universities needed a way to distinguish between the high-achieving students, with many students scoring similarly on standard questions. The inclusion of more difficult killer questions we call it key location, was seen as a way to differentiate the very best student. Education required advanced problem-solving skills, deep conceptual understanding, and creative thinking, making the effective for distinguishing students at the top of the academic spectrum. So if you want to be able to answer the key location, you have to go to the private academy, 학원, and it costs a lot of money. So last year, the president of South Korea banned locations in the CSAT last year. If you look at this is this year's student test. If you read the question, what will be the answer? The journalist handed in this question, this CSAT question, to American native speakers. Even the American native high school student could not give the right answer. The purpose of the killer question is to select top-ranking students, but it created lots of problems. The president of South Korea banned killer question last year, but now we have another problem, the rise of semi-killer question. So students still have to go to private academy called 학원 to prepare their CSAT to confront the semi-killer questions. It's never-ending story. And both TOEFL and TOEIC still hold significant importance in Korea. Some universities still accept TOEFL scores on the specific circumstances of early admission process. TOEIC, on the other hand, is widely used in the South Korea job market and plays a key role in hiring decisions for many companies. Many local and multinational corporations use TOEIC scores to assess the English proficiency of job applicants, particularly for roles that require communication with international clients or colleagues. A high TOEIC score is often considered an advantage for those seeking employment, especially in industries such as business, finance, marketing, and IT. Some universities in South Korea also require TOEFL or TOEIC scores for graduation or use them to assess student readiness for the global workforce. As a result, many students take TOEIC preparation courses during their university years. In Korea, the TOEFL and the TOEIC still function as basic English proficiency tests. In this situation, the CEFR cannot be used as effective guidelines for English teaching in the secondary education in Korea. Recognize its multiculturalism and multilingualism, Europe is now promoting pluriculturalism and plurilingualism. However, the pluriculturalism has not yet been acknowledged in Korea. New rules of English have been proposed in recent years in accordance to the development of technology and globalization. As we have seen above, the CEFR is not language specific, and it requires a comparable level of proficiency from language to language. However, the status of English as an international lingua franca is very strong in Korea, and is the only foreign language in Korea. In fact, the Korea Institute for Curriculum and Evaluation named all other foreign languages except English as a second foreign language. The widely spread concept that English speakers can communicate with the rest of the world is still dominant in Korea, and the so-called second foreign language education in high school level has been almost disappeared in the last 10 years. However, many universities in Korea have been reducing or even closing second foreign language departments, particularly for languages like German and French. This is largely due to decreasing enrollment in these programs as students gravitate towards fields perceived as having more direct career applications such as STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and medical schools. The shrinking demand for non-English foreign language expertise in the job market also plays a significant role. While the foreign language education policy makers in Korea ignore the value of the foreign language other than English, some of the European language educators, such as French and German, tend to value the achievement of the CEFR to promote the intercultural education and the multilingualism. The second foreign language educators in Korea keep asking to the policy makers that they realize the value and importance of developed foreign language in the global society. They recommend planning the foreign language education development based on plurilingualism, like CEFR. But the problem is, the question is, who will listen to them in Korea? This is the end of my presentation, and if you have any questions about my presentation, feel free to do so, please.
Okay, thank you, Professor Lee. You mentioned about there is a test for the Spanish test for assessing the Spanish proficiency, right? I don't know, DELE, right?
Yeah, DELE.
So do you think that the CEFR, the framework, we have the CEFR has 6 levels of proficiency, right? Do you think that that is sufficient to differentiate the learner's Spanish ability in Korean? I mean, we have A1 and A2, B1, B2, C1,
yes,
C2. Do you think that in Korea, when we want to document the learner's Spanish proficiency, do we need, some further or finer discrimination in terms of the 6 levels? In other words, do we need more levels? The A1?
Very good question. Yeah, I know. Yeah, before I'm a professor of Spanish at Korea University, and my department before used to require the test result of DELE. And if the student of the State Department and my university, if they, before their graduation, they have to pass at least level B1 of DELE before their graduation. But we stopped asking them to do so, and it's not their requirement anymore. Because after the graduation, all of my students wanna go to the law school or wanna join the global company like Hyundai, Samsung, LG, SK, telecommunication, etc. Or they wanna join the IT company like Naver, Kakao, etc., etc., etc. And the Spanish-speaking proficiency is not that important for them. Even I send interns to Mexico and Brazil because the Samsung and LG, more than 200 Korean companies have their plants in Mexico and Brazil. But even to them, the English proficiency is more important than Spanish proficiency. And somehow we don't trust them much of the test result of DELE. And Korean companies want to hire people who can speak English and Spanish in both languages, but they never want to hire people who only can speak Spanish. So I always ask my students, first learn English and then learn Spanish. If you only speak Spanish, there will be nowhere where you can get a job. And some global companies like Samsung and Hyundai in Korea, including myself, we don't trust the test result of the DELE.
So, Professor Lee, we have questions in the chat box. I think it's from Zhou Yimi. Did you see the question in the chat box?
Some argue that CEFR is neutral and seem to serve as a reference framework for other languages. I wonder what your thoughts are on this. Well, in Europe, English cannot be lingua franca. I mean, the equality between countries which joined the European Union is very important. So German has the same value as French, as English, as other foreign languages spoken within European Union. And I don't know, somehow in my university and in other universities in Korea, we don't use Spanish textbook published in Spain. Textbook based on the concept of the CEFR guideline. Somehow, students feel uncomfortable learning Spanish using textbook based on the written following the CEFR guideline. I don't know why. I think because all Koreans are very used to American standard. And since, I don't know, American troops are present in Korea, we are so close to the United States, and we are so used to American culture and American education system. And even some college, high school students in Korea take SAT and AP tests for the entrance test, especially from the European department. They insist that we have to adopt the CEFR for our foreign language education, but many of them don't feel comfortable with the concept.
No, I think Class J is about whether CEFR is also applicable to other European languages like Spanish or Italian. So
that was my answer. I mean, it would be applicable, I think, but in Korea, it's not applicable in Korea.
Okay. I think we have a similar situation here because we have some other foreign languages like Russian, Spanish, and Korean. And sometimes we call, other foreign languages as the second foreign language, like what do you do in Korea? It's interesting. Well, we use the term like a second foreign language. So English is the first foreign language. But for when we refer to other foreign languages in Taiwan, we also use the term like a second foreign language. It's interesting. It's just the general trend of English as a lingua franca.
The SAT is very important in Korean life. So, and on CSAT, every student should take the English examination. They have to hand in the score of the English, but they don't need to take the examination of a second foreign language. It's optional. And my university never require the score of the second foreign languages. Only very few universities, I think in case of the universities of foreign languages, maybe require the submission of the score of the second foreign languages for the university entrance, I think.
So thank you very much, Professor Lee, and thank you for the participation of the audience. Thank you for giving us the insightful understanding about the foreign language education in Korean. Okay, so at the end of today, we have a panel discussion. We will have Professor Lee in the panel discussion. So now, thank you for the participation in this session and have a nice day. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and I'll join you soon on the panel discussion. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.